After premiering at the South by Southwest Festival in March of 2023, positive buzz started building around the Cairns brothers' newest film, Late Night with the Devil. All the reviews seemed to indicate the low-budget horror picture was set to be a hit with audiences. As it continued its festival run, it really looked like it would be. I for one was very excited. Taking place almost entirely on the set of a 70s talk show, the movie would function as a found footage film, replaying exactly what happened during the last episode of Night Owls, hosted by Jack Delroy. An episode that focused on the supernatural and filmed on Halloween night. We were to see what audiences saw that night, and what they didn't see during the commercial breaks, even the behind the scenes. I'm not much of a horror fan. As I've mentioned on the channel before, I'm a little itty bitty scaredy cat, but the premise of the movie had me thinking it would be fun. Also, I really like David Dastmalchian in pretty much everything I've seen him, so I was hoping this movie would really push his fame even further, with him starring as the lead and pretty much the only somewhat big name actor involved with the project. Which reminds me, you should help push my fame as the only name that works on this channel actively. Maybe consider subscribing? But Late Night with the Devil wasn't the hit trades were expecting it to be. It was by no means a flop. It's just that word of mouth around the movie made it sound like the next big thing for horror, and it wasn't that. Something happened that instantly pivoted the audience's reaction to the movie. It was found that the movie used AI art for some of the transition scenes meant to capture the 70s vibe of the talk show. It's 3 stills and results in what's probably less than a minute. Nonetheless, audiences started boycotting the movie. As fear around the use of AI as a means to replace workers increases, especially for the creative fields, many did not feel comfortable supporting a movie that used AI-generated artwork, especially as there were 2 major strikes within the entertainment industry in the year leading up to the film's theatrical release, and both those strikes served to combat studio use of AI, specifically the use of AI to replace writers and actors. It's therefore understandable that audiences who followed the strikes would not want to support a picture which uses AI when graphic artists could have been used. The audience for a low-budget indie horror film that doesn't feature any A-list actors is likely the type to follow this sort of stuff.
Super intelligent AI is right around the corner. That the robots are gonna take over. Skynet is real and it's coming for us. Well, guess what? It's all bullshit. That fear is a tech bro fantasy designed to distract you from the real risk of AI. That a bunch of dumbass companies are lying about what their broken tech can do so they can trick you into using a worse version of things we already have, all while stealing the work of real people to do it.
He's right, but let's not fool ourselves. As AI becomes more easily accessible, it's inevitable that it starts being used commonly in different forms of art. The effort of the strikes wasn't to prevent this, but to dictate how it would be used. Instead of the studio using AI to bypass writers during the writing process, hiring only to edit, the strikes were a means to ensure that writers couldn't be replaced. A writer must be hired, but could use AI to help, such as with inspiration. It's important for the writers to set these terms early on, as if they do not, a precedent is set by the studios, and that becomes even harder to oppose. Similarly, audiences who care about this want to make it clear early on that they will not be receptive to AI use in films, and that studios should avoid doing so if they want to see their movies be as successful as possible. As Late Night with the Devil is one of the earliest examples of this, it felt important to audiences that they act on this movie. Though, it isn't the biggest example of this by any means. In fact, in summer of 2023, we saw a much larger and arguably more insulting use of AI by a major studio. By the major studio, Disney. The Disney Plus exclusive Marvel show, Secret Invasion, featured an AI-generated opening credits segment. It was much more than 3 images, and it was for a show that is part of the most lucrative cinematic franchise ever. The reasoning used to defend this decision was that this functioned with the show's themes, as the AI captured the feeling of the alien shapeshifters known as the Skrulls that played an antagonistic role in the series. The AI mimicked humanity similar to how the invading enemy did, giving the opening credits an eerie sense of inhumanity. The decision was said to be made in collaboration with Method Studios, who were hired to work on the VFX side of Secret Invasion, along with several other Marvel projects. In a statement made to The Hollywood Reporter, Method Studios claimed that the use of AI did not replace any artists. The directors of Late Night with the Devil made a similar statement to Variety, saying, "In conjunction with our amazing graphics and production design team, all of whom worked tirelessly to give this film the 70s aesthetic we had always imagined, we experimented with AI for 3 still images, which we edited further and ultimately appear as very brief interstitials in the film. We feel incredibly fortunate to have had such a talented and passionate cast, crew, and production team go above and beyond to help bring this film to life." Admittedly, I do believe that. When compared to Disney's use of the technology, this was a lot more of a situation where a small production was using all the technology available to them in order to make the most of what seemed to be a very tight budget. Nonetheless, it certainly feels as though the indie horror picture faced more backlash than the Disney-produced superhero show. I think the reason for this is quite simple. As I said, the people who care for the indie horror picture care for this stuff. Whereas the guy I heard scream, "Yes!" during a screening of Doctor Strange 2 because they named the Baxter Foundation, associated with the Fantastic Four, will probably watch the Marvel shows regardless. Admittedly, Secret Invasion did see the second lowest viewership of any Disney Plus Marvel premiere. But this was before we knew of the use of AI. Additionally, it did seem as though the series' viewership did see a steady decline, though this is more likely than not due to the poor reception the series faced and the overall public opinion that the MCU shows have been rather mid. Despite this, Late Night with the Devil still made roughly $12 million at the worldwide box office, on what, as I said, must have been a very small budget. I mean, they mostly use one set, the cast doesn't include any massive names, very few characters have dialogue, horror is already relatively lower budget as a genre, and most of the movie, with the exception of the final scene, could be done practically. It certainly made its budget back and then some, especially as it was acquired for streaming distribution by Shudder and found immense success on the streaming platform. The movie was, objectively, a success. Just not as big a success as it seemed on path to be a few months prior. Which I think was ultimately the best outcome, as the indie project was still successful to the point where I believe the team behind it will easily find work in the future, while the backlash to it did limit its success in such a way that future projects will hopefully avoid use of AI in order to maximize profit.
Whatever you might see or hear, I ask you all to remain calm. It's vital that Lily's focus remains with me. Let us begin.
Interestingly, the movie's plot almost feels connected to its reception. It's finally time to talk about the movie itself a bit, and I will get into spoilers. I'm not going to ask you to watch the movie as I understand why some of you may be hesitant to do so, but if you want to and haven't yet, this might be the time. In Late Night with the Devil, Daddy Dismouchin plays the late night talk show host, Jack Delroy. While his talk show is successful, it was never as successful as he would like it to be, especially as he's constantly being compared to the king of late night himself, Johnny Carson. But he never seems to catch up with Carson. Delroy also has ties with The Grove, a men-only club that meets within the California Redwoods that is rumored to have some ties with dark magic, possibly Satanism. It is claimed that its members' careers rely on this connection with the arcane. His viewership did reach a peak in 1976, though, 2 weeks before her death, A few months after her cancer diagnosis, his wife makes an appearance on his show. The two were considered a power couple and widely seen as a symbol of love within the entertainment industry. Audiences watched their favorite couple in a far more open way than what they normally could, and for the last time. The episode still failed to reach Carson's viewership. After her death, Jack leaves the public eye for a month. When he returns, the gap between him and Carson continues to widen. The final episode of his show, the episode the film focuses on, was meant to stir up controversy to help his career. He was to have a little girl on the show, a girl who possesses a demon within her. The entire episode is centered around mysticism, and there were early signs that it would go wrong. Before the young girl's appearance, Jack hosted a medium who died moments after communicating with a spirit that may just have been Jack's deceased wife. He died right off stage. Nobody in the audience knew, but Jack and his producer Leo did. Furthermore, the doctor who takes care of the young girl warns Jack that, in her possessed state, Lily started saying his name. Clearly, the demon within the young girl had something planned for his show. But to Jack, this spelled one thing and one thing only: ratings. With the ratings came an ugly truth. The demon within the young girl did know Jack. Mr. Wriggles knows of the Redwoods and knows of the Grove. We come to understand that Delroy made some deal with the devil to reach his fame, but he made a mistake in believing that this deal had no cost. The cost was his wife. He had his highest rated episode ever, but she lost her life. And now he's reaching a similar peak, maybe even higher, but at the cost of his reputation, and possibly everyone else's life, as the demon has plans to make this episode quite a show. It's unclear whether his association with the Grove is solely responsible for his career, or if he joined once his career was already on a steady path. But either way, his recipe for success was ultimately his recipe for his downfall. In a hallucination created by the demon, Delroy's wife asks him to end her suffering, to kill her. He obliges. In reality, he kills Lily, the young girl that was on his show, and he does it facing the cameras.
He's here, isn't he? Good to see you again, Jack.
Sorry, I don't believe we've been acquainted.
Don't be a fool. We go way back. We met amongst the tall trees. Remember?
Do I believe the creators behind this project made a deal with the devil? No. Do I believe their choice to use AI was anywhere near comparable? Also no. But it is interesting that their movie follows a man who's willing to do everything to achieve success, and this ends up being what limits it. Because I do believe that their choice to use AI was really one of using every resource available to make the most out of their budget, and that decision was ultimately what limited their success. So much love and passion went into this movie, and getting it to visually capture the essence it had. I have a very, very hard time believing they used AI because they didn't value the arts department working on the project. I suspect they just thought their limited resources were better allocated elsewhere. I think Late Night with the Devil is a great movie that unfortunately suffered the consequences of a small decision. A decision audiences reacted to because we want to protect artists, and it is important to take a stance on this now. It's just unfortunate that this movie is the one that we had to take a stance on, because this is a love letter by the creatives behind it. This is the exact type of project AI couldn't replicate. Thank you for watching. Recommend any show or movie you may enjoy, and tune in next week when I interview Barry Berkman for the last time and finally ask the killer, can we be redeemed? Have a good night, and stay classy, YouTube.